Dear people watching and listening, Assalamu alaikum. Kindly like and share this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Please support my channel by contributing to my Patreon account so that I can continue making the audiobook series. Salahuddin al-Ayubi, Volume 2, The Establishment of the Ayyubid State. Start of Part 4 of Chapter 4. Abdullah ibn Abi Asroon. The Sheikh, Imam, great scholar, brilliant faqih and prominent reciter, Sheikh of the Shafi'is, chief Qazi, scholar of Syria, Sharaf ad-Deen Abu Sa'd Abdullah ibn Muhammad ibn Hibatullah ibn al-Mutanhar ibn Ali ibn Abi Asroon ibn Abi Asari at-Tamimi, who was originally from Haditha in Iraq, al-Mawsili al-Shafi'i. Ibn Abi Asroon was appointed at the time of Nuruddin as Qadi of Sinjar, Nusaybin, Haran and other cities of the Diyarbakir, where he became like the chief judge, with deputies in all the cities whom he appointed himself. He was born in Mosul in 492 or 493 Hijri, and studied with a number of scholars. He moved to Aleppo in 545 Hijri, that is 1150 Common Era. Then he came to Damascus when Nuruddin entered the city in 549 Hijri, that is 1154 Common Era. He taught in the Mosque of Aleppo and settled there, and he wrote many books about fiqh and madhabs. Many students studied under him and benefited from him, and he was a faqih of the highest order. He was described as the most knowledgeable in fiqh of his age, and he was an imam for the Shafi'i madhab at that time. He was unique in his knowledge and actions, and was quickly promoted by Nuruddin, who appointed him to supervise the building of schools in Aleppo, Homs, Baalbek, and elsewhere. Soon after that, he was appointed as judge in Diyarbakir, where he was given far-reaching authority. In 566 Hijri, that is 1170 Common Era, he was sent as an envoy to the caliph al-Mustadi in Baghdad. Abdullah ibn Abi Asroon and Salahuddin al-Ayubi. Salahuddin knew Abdullah ibn Abi Asroon very well from the time of Nuruddin Mahmud Zangi. They had both grown up under his shadow and under his care, especially Salahuddin. They were both capable men. One of them worked in the judiciary as a judge, issuing religious rulings, and as a teacher in the field of education, and the other worked in the military field, which was his main focus. The course of events from the time of Nuruddin Mahmud Zangi indicates that the relationship between the two men was good, dominated by a spirit of affection and respect. They knew one another well and showed mutual respect. The evidence for that is a letter that Salahuddin sent from Egypt to Ibn Asroon in Syria, probably choosing him in particular over others as an acknowledgement of his ability to influence events. Hence his letter carried in its lines a kind of rebuke, expressing the hope that he would do his utmost to cause the failure of a treacherous deal. Abdullah ibn Abi Asroon did not approve of this pact, and was probably suffering mental anguish because of what had befallen the Muslims due to their weakness. Indeed, he preferred Salahuddin to come from Egypt, so that they could work together in complete harmony to put an end to such pacts and move on to achieve the stated goal, which was to expel the crusaders who were occupying Muslim lands in Greater Syria. It seems that Ibn Abi Asroon was in favor of Salahuddin coming from Egypt to Syria after the death of Nuruddin and the disputes among the emirs after that. This idea is supported firstly by the fact that he did not sign the deal, and in this regard, he was like the other emirs of Syria, and like the judges in particular, and he was one of the prominent figures in society. Secondly, he took a stand against the emirs who continued their opposition to Salahuddin al-Ayubi and strove to prevent him from coming to Syria, which is why Salahuddin appointed him to the judiciary in Egypt. Nevertheless, Abdullah ibn Abi Asroon went from Damascus to Aleppo with al-Malik as-Salih Ismail ibn Nuruddin Mahmud Zangi before Salahuddin came to Damascus. But it was not long before he returned to Damascus, where Salahuddin was. That was in 572 Hijri, when Kamal ad-Din ash-Shahrazuri, the Qadi of Syria at the time of Salahuddin, was dying. Indeed, he was one of those who washed and shrouded him, and was foremost among those who attended his funeral. Appointment of Ibn Abi Asroon as judge. When Kamal ad-Din ash-Shahrazuri realized that his end was near, he delegated the judicial affairs of Greater Syria to his nephew, Abul Fadail al-Qasim ibn Yahya ibn Abdullah, who was known as ad-Deen, and Salahuddin could not do anything but agree to this appointment, because ad-Deen was qualified to serve as a judge, although the position of judge is a high position, which should not be passed down by means of inheritance. Kamal ad-Din ash-Shahrazuri had played a role in setting the scene for Salahuddin's reception in Damascus, because he believed that he was more qualified than the other emirs to stand up to the crusader enemy. This was one of the glorious actions that are to the credit of Kamal ad-Din ash-Shahrazuri, as he put the general interests of the Muslims before all else, and preferred Salahuddin over all other emirs in Syria, who had signed a peace deal with the crusader enemy. This will be discussed in detail below, insha'Allah. But after the death of Kamal ad-Din ash-Shahrazuri, Salahuddin was inclined to appoint Ibn Abi Asroon to the judiciary for the following reasons. 1. Abdullah ibn Abi Asroon's strength of character, in terms of his great knowledge and the high esteem in which he was held, and his position as Sheikh of the Shafi'i madhab of his era. Most of his contemporaries bore witness to that. 2. Salahuddin's love and respect for the followers of the Shafi'i madhab, especially since he was himself a Shafi'i, to the point of fanaticism on occasion, and he wanted to unite the state on the basis of the Shafi'i madhab. 3. Salahuddin had taken Abdullah ibn Abi Asroon under his wing when he came to Damascus and given him authority as Qadi of Egypt, as al-Maqrizi stated in 570 Hijri. The fact that he sent him a letter urging him to abolish the peace deal that Damascus had made with the crusaders in the same year is evidence that Salahuddin had a great deal of love and respect for him, and wished that he would become the Qadi. Indeed, the letter is regarded as having paved the way for his selection in the future. 4. Moreover, the relationship between Salahuddin and Abdullah ibn Abi Asroon was so strong that it was Ibn Abi Asroon who arranged the marriage between Salahuddin and al-Khatun Ismat ad-Din, the daughter of the Amir Ma'in ad-Din Anar, who had been the wife of Sultan Nuruddin before his death, and who was living in the citadel of Damascus in 572 Hijri. 5. There were important personages in the state of Salahuddin who preferred for the position of chief Qadi of Syria to be given to Abdullah ibn Abi Asroon, such as al-Qadi al-Fadil, whose relationship with him was distinct. Ibn Abi Asroon often addressed him in his correspondence as Mujiruddin, which means protector of the faith, al-Qadi al-Fadil, as an indication of the high esteem in which he held him. Another was the Faqih Isa al-Hakari, one of the emirs of Salahaddin, who had studied under Abdullah ibn Abi Asroon and was inclined to favor his teacher and hoped to see him as the chief judge of Syria. Undoubtedly, these two people had a great influence on making Salahaddin favor Abdullah ibn Abi Asroon and appoint him as the Qadi. And 6. The plan of Abdullah ibn Abi Asroon and his helpers, who began to tell everyone that the ad-Deen was going to be dismissed and might be harmed, so he found himself in a critical position, which prompted him to err on the side of caution and offer his resignation from the post of judge, which was accepted with alacrity and with no hesitation. This shows us that Salahaddin was inclined towards Abdullah ibn Abi Asroon, even though he did not want to put pressure on the ad-Deen and dismiss him. Whatever the case, all these reasons together set the scene for Sharaf ad-Din ibn Abi Asroon to be appointed as the chief Qadi of all regions of Greater Syria that were under the control of Salahaddin al-Ayubi in 573 Hijri. Salahaddin also stipulated with regard to this appointment that Muhyiddin Abul Ma'ali Muhammad ibn Zakiyuddin and al-Awhad Dawood should be the deputies of Kamal ad-Din ash-Shahrazuri, acting as judges under his authority, but their appointment had to be signed by the Sultan himself. Academic output of Ibn Abi Asroon. Ibn Abi Asroon was a unique character. The author of An-Nujum al-Zahira described him as a virtuous imam and writer. As-Subki, the author of Tabaqat al-Shafi'ah, described him as a resident of Damascus and chief judge thereof, its scholar and most prominent figure. Muwaffaq ad-Din ibn Qudama al-Maqdisi said of him, he was the imam of the Shafi'is of his age. Ibn Salah described him as the most learned of the people of his age and the ultimate authority for rulings. Al-Imad al-Isfahani described him as Hujjat al-Islam, the Mufti of Iraq and Syria, the Sheikh of knowledge and great scholar. With his religious rulings, he supported Islam and all respect and honor are due to him. No one of our era who studied the Shafi'i madhab under him reached his level. His virtue was established everywhere. He wrote books of great benefit based on great knowledge. Among the books written by Ibn Abi Asroon were Safwat al-Madhab fi Nihayat al-Matlab in 7 volumes, Al-Intisar in 4 volumes, Al-Murshid in 2 volumes, Al-Zariyah fi Marifat al-Sharia in 1 volume, At-Taysir, which dealt with controversial issues, in 4 volumes, Ma'akhid al-Nazar, Mukhtasar al-Faraid, Irshad al-Mugharrab fi Nasrat al-Madhab, which he did not complete, and was lost with what was lost of his works in Aleppo. He also wrote other works including At-Tanbih fi Ma'rifat al-Ahkam, Fawaid al-Muhattab, in 2 volumes, Al-Muwaffiq wal-Mukhalif, Fawaid al-Mundhiri, in 2 volumes. He also wrote a book on the permissibility of a blind man serving as a judge. In Hidayah al-Arifin, al-Baghdadi added, Fatawa wa Musalsalat fil Hadith. Literary output of Sharaf ad-Din ibn Abi Asroon. Sharaf ad-Din was famous in the areas of fiqh, usul, controversial issues, religious rulings and judicial matters, and also in the field of literature. He was a poet and man of letters from whom Al-Imad al-Isfahani and others transmitted many lines of poetry, which reflect warm emotions, vivid imagination, and deep experience of life. Examples of his poetry include the couplet, Every gathering ends up being scattered, Every good time is contaminated with something to spoil it. The personality of Ibn Abi Asroon was unique because he combined many talents which had an impact on the fields of judicial matters, rulings, politics, administration, diplomacy, and international relations. He enjoyed sufficient knowledge and literary ability to qualify him to be appointed to the highest position as a judge, emissary, and the sheikh of the Shafa'is of his era. Taking good news to the Abbasid caliph. One of the great missions undertaken by the Qazi Sharaf ibn Abi Asroon was conveying the good news to the Abbasid caliph in 567 Hijri, that is 1171 Common Era, that Salahaddin had put an end to khutbahs being given in the name of the Fatimid caliph al-Adid, and had ordained that they be given in the name of the Abbasid caliph al-Mustadi billah. He also sent with him a copy of this good news that was to be read out in every city he passed through. Until he reached Baghdad, he did not leave any city he passed, but he entered it and read out his proclamation of great importance, until his caravan reached Baghdad, and all the people of that city came out to honor him, in recognition of that great news which he brought. They showed him great honor and respect, and gifts were sent to Nuruddin and Salahaddin. Al-Qazi Sharaf ibn Abi Asroon continued to play a part in political life, contributing his knowledge and opinions, and serving as Salahaddin's emissary to the Abbasid caliph in Baghdad, until the Battle of Hattin in 583 Hijri, that is 1187 Common Era. The historians confirmed that he took part in this great battle, in which Allah granted the recapture of most of the coastal cities of Syria and Jerusalem. Abdullah ibn Abi Asroon becomes blind. Sharaf ibn Abi Asroon remained a Qazi, judging according to Sharia, until 577 Hijri, when he became blind and lost his sight. The people said that he was not qualified to be a judge and doubted his credentials. Salahaddin found himself in a difficult situation and faced with the problem of fiqh. He did not want to hurt the feelings of his companion, who had lost his sight by dismissing him from the post of judge, but at the same time, he was hearing the opinions of jurisprudents, who criticized keeping Ibn Asroon in his post because he was no longer qualified. Sharaf ibn Abi Asroon confronted the problem himself and wrote a book about the permissibility of a blind man serving as a judge, disagreeing with the majority of jurisprudents. The foundation of Ibn Abi Asroon's argument that it was permissible for a blind man to serve as a judge was an opinion expressed in Jama' al-Jawami by ad-Rawayani. Sharaf ibn Abi Asroon adopted this view and wrote a book based on it, and he remained a judge when he became blind. The argument of the majority was based on the idea that a blind man could not recognize the disputants or witnesses, so how could he judge properly concerning an issue that was put to him? The argument of those who regarded it as permissible was that Shu'aib alayhi salam, the prophet of Allah, was blind, and if he was a prophet who was sent by Allah, then it was more appropriate that a Qazi should be able to remain in his post, because a prophet is nobler than a Qazi, as Allah has given him precedence over others. In opposition to this, it was said that it was not proven that Shu'aib alayhi salam was blind, and even if we accept that he was blind, the number of people who believed in him was small, so perhaps there was no need for him to judge between them. If we assume that they needed that, revelation would have come to the Prophet Shu'aib alayhi salam and guided him to a decisive judgment, and that is not available to a Qazi because no revelation comes to him. In the face of this problem, in which Sharaf ad-Din ibn Abi Asroon stood alone on one side, and all the jurisprudence of Syria stood on the other, Salah ad-Din was very frustrated. What should he do? Salah ad-Din turned to al-Qadi al-Fadil, who was in Egypt at that time, and sent word to him, asking him for help to solve this problem by contacting Sheikh Abu Tahir ibn Auf al-Iskandari, and asking him what was narrated in the hadiths about a blind man serving as a Qadi, in the hope that he would find a solution to the problem, for which he could not find an answer. Soon the reply came from al-Qadi al-Fadil to Salah ad-Din. There could be only one of two answers, and may Allah choose for His Highness the best option, and help him to solve this problem that no Muslim king would be able to solve. Either the post could be left in the name of the father, so that his opinion may be consulted, and his fatwas and blessings sought, whilst appointing his son to act as his deputy, on condition that he be penalized and dismissed for the first error he made, or the matter must be delegated to Imam Qutubuddin, who was the last of the senior sheikhs and the most prominent among our companions, so no one in any land should take precedence over him, except one who was more qualified in knowledge than he. In this answer, Salah ad-Din found a way out, which left no room for any criticism. So he kept Sharaf ad-Din as the head judge and delegated matters to his son Muhyiddin Abu Hamid Muhammad ibn Sharaf ad-Din, on the condition that his father should be the real judge, and it would appear to the people that he was his father's deputy, and it would not appear as if his father had been dismissed from his post as judge. Thus Sharaf ad-Din ibn Abi Asroon continued to be the chief judge of Syria, and his son acted as his deputy, because he defended himself and researched thoroughly in the books of fiqh and derived evidence to demonstrate the permissibility of a blind man serving as a judge. Moreover, Salah ad-Din stood by his side, and his friend al-Qadi al-Fadil supported him on the basis of truth. The death of Ibn Abi Asroon. Al-Qadi ibn Abi Asroon died on 11th Ramadan, 585 Hijri. When the news reached al-Qadi al-Fadil in Egypt, he wrote a letter on this occasion eulogizing Sharaf ad-Din in response to the letter that had brought this news to him from Syria. I received a letter from your honorable person. May Allah grant you peace of mind and cause your family to be happy with you, and guide you to all goodness, and make all your words and deeds be for the sake of Allah. In it was news which undermines Islam and more, which may lead to collapse, namely the news of what Allah has decreed of the death of Imam Sharaf ad-Din ibn Abi Asroon. May Allah have mercy on him, and that great calamity that has resulted from his death of reducing the land from its outlying borders, and the grief of the Muslims and the rejoicing of their enemies. He was a banner of knowledge, following in the footsteps of the righteous first generations. He spread knowledge in Syria, and everyone who benefited from his knowledge did so because of his efforts. May Allah be pleased with him, and bestow abundant mercy upon him. He has not died who left all these books behind, which are full of benefits. Rather, he has not died who left behind a son like Al-Muhi. This, by Allah, is the legacy and benefit that he has left behind. I was sorely grieved not to be present when he was on his deathbed, and not to be standing there to pray to Allah as he was dying. Allah knows how much distress I felt for losing him, and how lonely I felt, because the world is bereft of him, and how concerned I am at the loss of the supplications that he used to offer for me. But praise be to Allah, he did not die until he had raised righteous sons, and taught seekers of knowledge, and built schools and mosques, and filled his days and nights with prayer, bowing and prostrating. This is his legacy, He lives on, and it is rather we who are dead because of losing him. End of part 4 of chapter 4.